A lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about weed, marijuana, Mary Jane, however you want to call it, but it was always there for me, man. Tell me when my mom was stressing me out, when dudes that I thought my friends exposed themselves as fakes and phonies, when I was going through a breakup with my girlfriend, when I just felt like I had nobody, or times when I, isolated myself, when I went in monk mode, what I'm saying? Weed was always there to get me through these days. Now, the biggest downfall I could say was me smoking weed at such a young age, what I'm saying, where I didn't have a consistent job, or I was literally using my last to buy weed. And I grew up in the times where people were selling weed by the bags, man. It was like 3 for 20. 3 dime bags for 20 was like a known deal. And I wasted so much money doing that back then. But I didn't know. I didn't know about that it was better to just buy it as a half ounce. But another thing is, weed was super expensive back then. Now I could get a whole half ounce nowadays for like $100, 130 tops. Sometimes 80 if some good bud. I got some good bud right now. I got 2 ounces of good bud. I paid $160 for both of them. But you know what I'm saying? In my times, early 2000s, when I started smoking weed, when I was in high school, man, a half ounce would run you like $250, $260 easily. So times have changed. So that's why back then I was buying a lot of 3 for 20. When I went to Church Street South, the jungle, projects I used to hang out before they knocked them down, right across from the police station in New Haven. They used to sell nickel bags. I remember smoking nickel bags of like watermelon haze, beef and broccoli, stuff like that, getting high off the nickel bags, man. Boy, have times changed. But I had some good times, man. I had some good memories, And I'm not gonna say I wouldn't have had good times without weed, but weed definitely made it better. Like some of the laughs that I had with some of my homies smoking weed, and just memories, man. If you know, if you're an avid weed smoker, then you know what I'm talking about. You could just go back and reminisce and think about the times you used to smoke weed, and like the good laughs you used to have, the good conversations, the good experiences. Man, when I was young, first smoking weed, it used to affect me different, I remember smoking weed in high school, baking a car, right? You skip first period. And we used to bake in the car, and I used to get so high. I used to ask God to make me sober, and I promised God that I would never smoke again. That's how bad it was. And I obviously broke that promise. God forgive me, and God has forgiven me, because I had built a tolerance. But man, it was no joke. It was no joke trying to build that tolerance at first, man. That felt like my heart was jumping out of my chest. I remember I couldn't stop laughing. You would have thought I took some laughing gas, bro. It was crazy. But like I said, man, I built a tolerance. And weed helped me get through the day a lot of times, If it felt like it was a long day and I smoked, the day went by faster. I enjoy movies better. I'm really locked into the movie. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the movie. The dreams I had and have, I felt a lot to do with smoking weed. A lot of people try to say you can't focus. You can't focus off of weed, and that's not true. I'm really focused a lot of times. I'm focused on the TV shows. I'm focused on the movies. I'm focused on what I'm doing when I'm high. Always been a street weed smoker. I've tried medical marijuana, and it's just garbage. It's crap. I don't know what they're putting in that stuff, but it can't be anything good. The way it makes me feel, the way it smokes is just completely different than street weed. And the guy I've been buying weed from for the past like 3.5 years, I know the source. I know where it's coming from. I can't really say that when I was younger. I was just buying it. But the quality of weed when I was younger was definitely different, It was definitely a higher potency. It was definitely pure. It definitely went through less hands before it got to the dealer and got to me, Like nowadays, everybody's trying to take advantage. A lot of people are just lacing weed with stuff. And don't get me wrong, people used to smoke weed with like it's called, you can call it wet or dust. I think embalming fluid is another name for it. People used to lace their weed with crack and coke, but it used to be more aware. Like in the hood, you would know if somebody was lacing your stuff. You know, nowadays people are selling you weed and there's fentanyl laced in the weed. You can't even really tell. You know, there was also a lot more different variations of weed back then, a lot more different buds. I remember smoking White Widow. I remember smoking Sour Diesel was very popular. Hydro was very popular. Hawaiian Haze, Hawaiian Kush, Blueberry Haze. A lot of different flavors were more available back then in the hood. Like I said, I used to buy nicks of beef and broccoli and nicks of other types of weed. I remember it was me and like 4 or 5 of my homies. We was walking in the suburbs, walking to the corner store, and we found a bag of weed on the ground. It was a dime bag, but it had yellow hairs. I swear the bud was like yellow. It's crazy. 4 or 5 of us smoked them. We were avid smokers, you know what I'm saying? Our tolerance was pretty up there. We all got high. We all got high off of this one bag of weed, and that was unheard of. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Talk about weed. Sharing blunts, man, and smoking out of blunts. When I was young, coming up, early 2000s, we definitely used to share blunts. You know, sometimes 5, 6, 7 heads on one blunt. You got to worry about people hogging it. You got to worry about that person who lips it seemed like they tongue kissing the J. It's all wet and stuff. A lot of different stuff with weed, man. Now I don't even smoke with people, and if I do smoke with somebody, they gotta have their own blunt, own joint. I don't even smoke blunts anymore. Remember we used to talk about going J for J. That's joint for joint. What is the point of that? So J for J used to be link up with your homie. Y'all smoke one J together, the one he rolled or you rolled, and then you smoke yours after. What is the point of that? We used to just face it. It's the same effects as just facing a J. This roommate used to have. I had a roommate back in like 2014, 2015 to 2016, 17, around there. And he used to get mad at me. Sometimes I used to smoke by myself. He's like, "Oh, why are you smoking by yourself, alienating yourself? Weed smoking is a social thing." And like, no, it's not. He was a weirdo. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude try to force me to smoke with him. Like, bro, if I want to smoke your own weed, you have your own weed, I have my own weed. I don't need to smoke with you. You know, dude had a girlfriend, I had a girlfriend, and other girls I was smashing. Like, I don't know what he was doing with his mouth. Excuse me. Yeah, but back then, man, people used to always be sharing blunts and stuff like that. And it seemed like ever since COVID, it took COVID for that to stop. But yeah, sharing blunts and all that stuff, I'm looking back on it, man. That was nasty. You don't know what dudes was doing with their mouths, man. Somebody had an open sore and then you hit the blunt after them, open sore inside their lip, you can't see, you know? Definitely putting ourselves at risk of catching stuff from other people, you know? So nowadays, if people are still sharing blunts and sharing joints, man, you're a weirdo, man. That shit's a no-no. It's unsanitary as well. And speaking of blunts, man, Dutch Masters, man, we used to smoke Dutches heavy. I thank God, I'm extremely thankful that my lungs are not ruined and I can still do cardio, I can run, I can exercise and don't feel like my lungs are hurting tight. But because those blunts, man, which really were cigars, you know, some people will buy them, low grade cigars, because they were like $1, $1.25, $1.50, depending on where you buy them, but they were mainly made for smoking like a cigar. We used to break them down, empty the guts, and roll weed in them. Super unhealthy. I haven't smoked blunts in a very, very long time. It's just straight up cones for me, which are organic cones. You know, the company is raw, king size, so they burn slow. But yeah, man, I've been off blunts. You got dudes that are still smoking backwoods. I tried smoking a backwood a few times, man. That shit is so harsh on the lungs. Tastes like crack. You really got to put a lot of weed in those things, man. You got to put a lot of weed in the backwoods for you to actually get the taste of the weed and not just be tasting straight up backwood. But yeah, man, a lot of these dudes, they're gonna have, if they don't already have asthma and lung issues and shortness of breath from smoking all them backwoods. And you got some dudes that smoke back to back to back to back on the backwoods. And that's another thing I want to talk about, man. Smoking, if you facing a joint, you facing a blunt, you smoking one after another, man, that shit is pointless. You're only gonna get but so hot. And I've even tried this recently. You know, some days on a day off, I smoke one joint after another, and it just did nothing. It didn't get me higher. It just made me more tired. You know? You're only going to get but so high. And this brings me to another point. I used to be a really big fan of Wiz Khalifa. A really big fan of Wiz Khalifa. He's not the reason why I started smoking. I was introduced to weed in high school towards like older dudes, but I used to love Wiz Khalifa, man. I used to love his music. That he was a serious weed smoker. Now that I look at Wiz, man, that dude is a fiend, man. For real. He is a fiend. He just smokes unnecessarily, back to back to back. You're only gonna get but so high. And he talks about smoking his own strand. He smokes his own strand, Khalifa Kush. So how much of the same strand, the same weed can you smoke? Back to back to back to back. You know, he's an addict. He really is. He really is an addict, and that's not cool. It's not cool to be getting that high. It's not going to do nothing for you. You look stupid, you know. He's definitely somebody where if he didn't have weed, he'd probably be ready to pull his hair out. He'd probably be really ready to kill himself. He'd probably be ready to kill somebody. And that's not me. I actually quit smoking weed. I stopped smoking weed for a good 6 months. Yeah, a good 6 months. And a lot of people will say, oh, if you quit, you're going to see a difference. You know, you're gonna feel better. You're going to feel... That's not true. I didn't see any difference. I didn't lose anything. I didn't gain anything by stopping smoking weed. And if as of today I couldn't get weed ever again, I'd be fine. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'd be fine, man. Because I have a strong relationship with God. I have faith in God, you know. And I enjoy smoking weed, but it's not a need. I don't get upset and get pissed and be like, man, I got stuff for calm, man. Piss me off. I gotta smoke to calm down. No, if you ever have to go and smoke weed when you're upset or because somebody made you angry, you have a problem. It is an addiction. It is an addiction. Just like people go and try to hit the bottle. Oh, let me get a drink, man. I had a rough day at work. My boss pissed me off today. My coworkers were lazy, man. I need a bottle. I need to smoke before I flip out on somebody. I need to smoke before I get fired. I need to smoke before I beat up my girlfriend, before I kill my girlfriend. No. You have a problem. The weed is not going to change your emotions. The weed is not going to change your thoughts and your anger issues. You just have a problem in general. And you shouldn't be using weed as a clutch to fix your issues, man. That's just the truth of the matter. Let weed be something you enjoy. Something you want to do to relax you. Something as recreational. That's all weed should be. But yeah, man, weed to me, weed is a whole lot more to me than that, man. You know, like I said, man, weed got me through a lot. You know, I was homeless. You know, I was going through things with my girlfriend, going through things with friends, not having the support from my mom. Yeah, man, weed definitely got me through. It definitely got me through those times. God did too, don't get me wrong. God was the main reason that got me through. But God also put weed here for us to enjoy. You know, it's a plant. It's a herb. You know what I'm saying? God put weed here. You know, God put animals here for us to eat. He put weed here for us to enjoy. So that's just how I see it, man. And anybody who tries to talk down on weed or talk bad about weed, they must have had a bad experience. Or, you know, they've used weed as a clutch. Or they smoke weed and say, oh, it makes me paranoid. It makes me that, you know, to each his own, man. But when it comes to me, can't nobody tell me how weed affects me. You know, I used to work with a dude who try to tell me, oh, you need to stop smoking, it's bad for you. But he used to drink every weekend. He was an alcoholic. Dude, you're drinking poison. How you going to compare poison to weed? How you going to compare something that went through the prohibition to a herb, to a plant people been smoking for years? Come on now, man. You can't compare poison to weed. You get what I'm saying? You cannot compare the two. When there's a liquor store on every single corner, they're trying to promote this stuff. And we seen the effects of it. You can't compare liquor to weed, man. My girlfriend has a sister in the hospital right now from her alcohol addiction. Very close to dying, man. Very close to dying. You can't compare the two. Nobody is dying off of weed. Nobody is on their deathbed because of weed, man. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. So yeah, man, end it here, man. Hit the like button. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe down below. Comments, please. Really, I really want comments on this video because I want to know if anybody are weed smokers, man. How y'all feel about weed and how has weed affected you in your life? And maybe you know a friend or a loved one or somebody related to you that has a weed addiction. How do they act off weed? You know, how do they feel about weed? All right? Catch you in the next one, man. Peace and love.